Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're definitely talking about Netflix and Warner Brothers and what happened, because that deal fell apart rather quickly. It looks like when Sarandos goes to Washington, it doesn't work well in his favor. His two visits have resulted in not a successful takeover of Warner Brothers Discovery. Instead, he walks out on the deal. And that means Paramount's bid emerges as the front runner, and we are going to have to play the game. Oh, and by the way, a lot of people on the left side of the equation are absolutely losing their minds. So here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K. In fact, I'd like to get to 500K one day, and that's all with your kind help. So please double check you're still subscribed to the channel. If you see the button down there and it says subscribe, click it and make it say subscribed, and then hit the bell icon and turn on all notifications. After that, if you hit the thumbs up button, that's early engagement, also good for the video. And if you want to make sure you never get unsubscribed again or show support and get me regularly in your feeds, just watch another one of my videos right after this one, which means you can just turn on a playlist and you'll be good to go. Anyway, let's jump into the story. So, according to our friends at That Park Place, specifically Marvin Montanaro, the Netflix concedes Warner Brothers battle as Paramount bid emerges as frontrunner. No surprise there. I kind of feel a little bit like, I told you so, and you know what? I don't mind bragging on that. I think a lot of you recognize that I was right to be where I was when I was telling you this is a done deal. In a lot of ways, this was the only way this could go to protect Hollywood and to protect movies. Netflix is not really interested in theatrical releases, and up until very recently, they've been telling you that. They've been showing you that. And even when they release things cinematically, it's only for a bare minimum of days, so they qualify for awards. And of course, those awards that they qualify for are only within the strict guidelines of living within the woke rules that have been established by the Academy of Film Sciences. And that has been why the Oscars has been such a bore lately in pretty much every award show from that point forward. So in the dramatic shift in the high-stakes Paramount Warner Brothers takeover fight, Netflix has officially walked away from the bidding war, clearing a major path for David Ellison's Skydance-backed offer. The streaming giant confirmed Thursday that it will not raise its bid, signaling the escalating price tag driven by Paramount's improved proposal has pushed the deal beyond what Netflix considers financially prudent. Well, good for them. And they're right. This deal is definitely like, well, Disney's purchase of Fox. It's far too much for something as, well, despite the IP, not as big as it should be. In fact, Warner Brothers Discovery's value is only artificially inflated right now because somebody was willing to pay it. And that's kind of the art of the deal, right? At least I think so. In a joint statement, Netflix co-CEOs Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters made it clear that the company is stepping aside. Wait till we get to how they talked about it with employees, stating that the transaction we negotiated would have created shareholder value with a clear path to regulatory approval. However, we've always been disciplined, and at the price required to match Paramount Skydance's latest offer, the price is no longer financially attractive. So we are declining to match Paramount Skydance's bid, which they still had 3 more days to do, at least when they turned this down. And so that language effectively ends their pursuit of Warner Brothers. And that tells you that, well, Paramount's in the game, and they're the only ones in the game, and this is about to get crazy. But honestly, is anybody surprised? If you've been listening to myself, people like WDW Pro, Jonas J. Campbell, Valiant Renegade, and many other people that are in the same sphere, the fellowship, if you would like to call us that, have been saying this was the way things would go down for a long time. It's been reported on our outlets, such as That Park Place, and also over on the Geeks and Gamers website, and we've just kind of told you how it is. I hope a lot of you feel more informed now than ever and understand why we are always in pursuit of the truth and the right part of the story, not a narrative, just giving you the information. And this left David Zaslov kind of struggling because he had to go out and sell the Paramount deal to a shocked and disappointed employee base at a town hall, saying, "We're the envy of the industry." Well, that actually might be true. And I think a lot of people are going to envy their jobs if they, get to see their friends and family members not have them anymore. This is definitely going to happen within Hollywood at all different levels, not just in television and film, but even in music and gaming. This is going to be a smaller entertainment cycle than we've ever seen. And one of the ways to make it not so limited is to leave the studios intact, which is what this deal will do. In fact, 2.5 months after Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslov touted the deal to sell Warner Brothers to Netflix at a December 5 town hall, he did the same this morning with the studio's new buyer. Of course, that's when this article was written by Deadline. Now, this morning's Warner Brothers Discovery Zoom town hall was shorter. It lasted just over 20 minutes, and the mood was very different, with employees still reeling from the shocking news yesterday that Netflix dropped out after Warner Brothers Discovery went for Paramount's superior offer. Look, if you're getting that much from a company that's willing to overpay, probably by a factor of 3, I don't know how this was not a no-brainer. They are supposed to always give their shareholders the absolute best value at all times, even if it doesn't create the best payday for Zaslov and for his co-conspirator in this one, Gunnar Weidenfels. And it really didn't. This might actually hurt his overall takeaway from what would have happened if they'd effectively split the company in half. But at the end of the day, don't the shareholders just want one payday and not maybe hope on a wish and a prayer that they might get a second one? Because that was really what was on the table. But it gets more interesting than that. You see, Warner Brothers Paramount reactions are actually hysterical. We're seeing full panic across the media sectors, but only one specific place where they're really in full panic mode, which is on the political side of the equation. You see, Wall Street analysts are split on this. Activist investors, are, of course, the one specifically with the Ellison family is celebrating, and Netflix stock rose because guess what? They didn't take the bait and raise the price for something that was really just a virtue signal. For them, there wasn't a lot of value here because they would have put it all behind the paywall and we would have gotten a lot less theatrical releases. And despite the hollow promises that were made by Zaslov to the Senate Judiciary Committee, for how long could they hold him to those? And wouldn't it be just as vague as him saying that and then saying, well, the situation's changed, so we're going to do a strictly streaming strategy? Of course. Once again, the only time Netflix seems interested in putting something into the marketplace is if it has a shot at an award or two. And again, it's very strictly controlled. And what was brought into the forefront by Joshua Hawley's questioning of Ted Sarandos really outlined what their motivations have been for a long time: identity politics. Anyway, let's step away and look at this particular statement because I think this is interesting. And then we're going to get to one more. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're just not even quite halfway through this. So, stunned though Hollywood and Wall Street were by the flurry of action late Thursday in the Warner Brothers Discovery merger saga, initial reactions to Netflix conceding the fight to Paramount soon surfaced. Well, of course it did. We were expecting this. In fact, a lot of us were like, how is this still going on? And when is Paramount going to say, no, thank you? And I promise you, had that happened, Netflix would have been bound to a deal that would have crippled them, and they probably wouldn't have been able to monetize for a long, long time. And I'll be honest, Netflix can occasionally create good things, but usually they're brought to them after they're already finished. Somebody else financed them and they realize the value with a one-time purchase. That's another problem with streaming that makes it quite different from what they do in Hollywood. Residuals and other things are really important to people who work in the industry. And if you're not doing that anymore, there's, not quite as much to point to as far as value goes, at least in my opinion. So shareholders also made their feelings known during the after hours trading. Shares in Netflix jumped 9% as investors seemed to cheer the decision to exit the bidding. Paramount's stock shot up almost 6% on top of the 10% gain during the regular session, while Warner Brothers Discovery stock slid 1%. And again, All of that seems rather logical to me. You're going to see a rise in the companies that are going to survive, and you're going to see a fall in the one that's going to be eliminated. And a lot of other things are going to be eliminated as well. We can't pretend that everything Warner Brothers Discovery has is made of gold. We'll have to see what stays and what goes. We also know there will be significant changes. And that's where we enter the political theater, because let me tell you, they're squawking. Right-wing billionaire Larry Ellison, who is also known as one of Elon Musk's best friends and Trump's supporter, just bought the company that owns CNN. So, quotes from Wall Street Mav say panic at CNN is off the charts. We are fudged, and we are doomed. This is hilarious. CNN braces for Ellison's control. These are the headlines we were seeing yesterday as things were going down. So with David Ellison poised to take control of Warner Brothers Discovery, a chill settled over CNN. As staffers fear for the future, the panic at CNN right now is off the charts, says an insider talking to Status. Does that surprise anybody? Well, not me. I mean, there is going to be significant change. A lot of people are going to complain because they enjoyed having the, propaganda monopoly. And if somebody even decides to report just the facts, like CBS News promised to do and has been doing since Weiss's official takeover and direction, well, they do the same thing at CNN, and we have a different ballgame. Even Fox News is going to have to look out the side of their eye to wonder if maybe somebody's not coming for them. And I think they will be. So Paramount should enjoy its growing news monopoly while they have it. Because when Democrats win back power, we're going to break these anti-democratic information conglomerates, all of them. And you're going to wonder where that quote came from. Well, let's take a look, because it's from a politician right here. Chris Murphy vows that Democrats will break up information conglomerates. Well, you didn't do it before. We've been having nothing but information conglomerates for a long time, with only one side of a conversation, and it's narratively driven instead of driven by facts and logic. Look, it's easy to get reactions out of people's if you dive into their feels. In fact, a lot of times the negative comments on my channel are driven by feelings and not facts. Accusations without an emphasis on what's actually happening or any delineation of, where those accusations came from. This is the same thing with the news media, whether it be in print, whether it be here on the platforms, or even over on the mainstream networks or the legacy dinosaur media, whatever you prefer. But that particular battle is over. And whether or not it's particularly loved by the folks in politics, especially the Democrats, I don't think we should care. In fact, I think the harder fight will be in the EU, where they're going to try to pretend like this hasn't existed already with outlets like the BBC, CBC, or anything else anywhere else where it's just one source of information that everybody gloms onto. So, Senator Chris Murphy weighed in on Paramount's apparent victory in the battle for Warner Brothers, adding that to the chorus of Democrats who are vowing investigations and other actions if they return to power after this year's midterms. See? Threats. This is what they were doing over at Netflix with Susan Rice, and now they're threatening from Congress, from the Senate committees. And here, I don't mind things be looked in. In fact, I encourage it. But here's the thing. When you look into stuff, sometimes it looks very bad for you. And we've seen this with the recent file releases from The Island Boy and other things recently. When you start to expose the cabal gets a little nervous and runs away. And we're starting to see that as billionaires such as Bill Gates basically shut down their foundation and begin to give away all of their vast wealth. There's a lot of things going on in the background here, all spurred on from, the decision to push the administration to release all of these files that have been hidden away for so long. Why weren't they released until now? Why wasn't there a big push? Well, because we were just trying to get information on one man. That didn't work out very well, did it? And while many Republicans centered their criticism on Netflix taking ownership of Warner Brothers, something that is off the table now that the streamer has declined to make a rival bid, Democrats like Murphy have raised concerns about their transaction. And this is wild to me because it was not that long ago that both Trump and Elizabeth Warren and several other of her cohorts were on the same side on this one. There doesn't seem to be a lot of transactional illegality to what would be happening here. There would be some overlap that need to be accounted for and eliminated, but not much. In fact, this is the cleanest way to go about things, considering how large HBO Max is at well over, 119 million subscribers or more, according to the last quarterly. Combining with the largest streamer, Netflix, that would have seemed very monopolistic. Do you know who doesn't have that kind of streamer viewership? Paramount Plus. This is easy mode. And when you start to take a look at the variety of content, it gets even, less of a monopolistic practice and more of an opportunity for other places to compete. If you're worried about competition, guess what? That means things are fairly balanced, and going forward, that's exactly what we were looking for, or at least what I was looking for. Anyway, across the pond over there at The Guardian, they took away something else. CBS News and CNN staffers fear disaster as Paramount wins the Warner Brothers battle. Decisions by Netflix to walk away from the takeover leaves workers anxious about possible merger of news networks. Well, I wonder why. First of all, I don't find this offensive or problematic at all. I think you want to remove redundancy, and I think you want to streamline, but I think you also want the largest news gathering organization you can build. One of high quality, one that's facts driven, one that uses logic instead of feelings and avoids narratives. And in fact, I think narratives are the biggest problem in the world right now when it comes to things that are supposed to be absent bias. That's where a lot of problems lie, and that's where a lot of these entities get into trouble. But again, from The Guardian, Netflix's decision to walk away from its $83 billion bid for Warner Brothers Discovery has left some staffers working at CBS News and CNN panicking about the future as the two top-tier news service operations come under the same roof. Well, CBS has made some remarkable changes and are headed in the right direction, and I think a large percentage of people would have to agree. And CNN, if you look at the polling for the political party that was using it as a propaganda arm, is in full crumble mode, as we see the polling from even inside CNN, produced by their pollster, who does a fantastic job over there, is showing the negative reception of the current messaging from, the left side of the equation. So if you bring all of these things together and you have a conversation, they're worried about truthfulness in media. I don't know why that would happen. With Paramount Skydance emerging as the winning bidder, a deal that still requires the approval of WBD shareholders and government regulators, they fear the merging of the two networks, and with it, the potential for significant amount of job cuts. Some CNN employees are also nervous about Paramount's Trump-friendly ownership and leadership enacting ideologically driven programming changes to the network. That's odd. They didn't seem to be so concerned when the ideologically driven programming was, coming from their perspective. And look, there's no evidence of this at all. There's suspicions and fears because of what we've been subjected to over the course of the last 20 years. And I say years because it's probably even more than that. It was just a little more subtle and a little less heavy-handed and a little less on the nose and a little less identitarian, which I think is the biggest problem in news media these days. Again, driven by feelings, not facts, and that doesn't make for anything but a narrative and is absent truthfulness, which again, big problem. With particular concern about the specter of CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss possibly getting a significant role. Possibly? It's almost guaranteed at this point. I believe she'll be the head of all news divisions, including CNN. You're going to start to have things look the right way. A changing 60 Minutes, which got rid of its compromised Anderson Cooper. At least he's disappearing from 60 Minutes soon. He never should have been there. And then Anderson also having it to be subjected to Barry Weiss over there at CNN. This is juicy, wonderful, spectacular, and will likely, succeed where other things have failed. In fact, I cannot wait to see Scott Jennings appear on all of these amazing news outlets. We'll see, but I'm looking forward to it. Weiss is a conservative commentator. No, she's not. Not in any way. She is a woman who is married to another woman who is very centrist, if anything, beliefs. In fact, she probably pivots more left than right. But at least she keeps any kind of bias out of what she does and built her brand of the Free Press or whatever that organization was into a $150 million at least juggernaut. And it landed her the top job at CBS and likely CNN. So you guys need to figure it out because you're not lying very well. She is turned media entrepreneur with no previous television industry experience. Not that that's required. Take a look at the new media. I mean, a lot of us in the new media have no television experience, but we understand how to have a conversation, interact with our audiences, and report on the facts of the day. And when wrong, we will confront ourselves, talk about it, admit it, and get past it. Replace it with good information instead of leaving the bad information in place. Something no one can accuse nowadays of any of these mainstream outlets or dinosaur media doing anymore. In fact, if anything, they thrive off the bad information. The Guardian, of course, being as left side of the equation as you can be, says she's had an uneven tenure at CBS since she was appointed editor-in-chief last October. Her path to the job was paved by concessions that David Ellison and his Skydance Media made to gain the support of a Trump-picked regulators to acquire Paramount. Honestly, the president's in charge of the who or what sits on most of these regulators' path. The only one that he's not I guess, permitted to control is the Fed. Boy, would we be better off if that was different, but it's a different conversation entirely. Now, the Paramount-Warner Brother merger is a disaster for the people who work at both companies, and if Barry Weiss takes control of CNN, it will be the end of the global network Ted Turner founded. Well, wouldn't that be lovely? Except that's not true. It's not going to be the end. It's going to be the end of the propaganda arm for one particular party. And I'm not overstating it. That's not hyperbolic. There's only really been one opinion over there since Ted and his wife, Hanoi Jane, did their level best to move this from being a news organization, which was built off a 24-hour cycle that didn't exist before, resetting the news every single hour, every 9 minutes, like a normal news streaming program would, to something akin to an entertainment company, which they've often actually admitted to, especially in the Jeff Zucker area. Very little of what was presented then was anything but opinion, and it's really difficult to listen to people revise history like this, at least for me anyway. So one concerned CNN producer who was not authorized to comment told The Guardian, "I don't think it's hyperbolic." Well, yeah, of course you don't. It's not hyperbole to be worried about the company changing. Of course it is. A second CNN staffer had more measured reactions, saying that because CNN is so big and makes so much money, it's always going to attract the Ellisons. Does it though? Does it? Is it a giant moneymaker? I don't think that's quite true anymore. It used to be. But there are people within the CBS organization that have come around to a reality. Multiple CBS news staffers who were not authorized to speak. Mark these words. They are not authorized to say these things. They're leaking them to get a narrative out, to, again, put their opinion in play as fact, which is reported as fact by outlets like The Guardian, saying that they resorted to curse words after reading the news. Fudge, 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 said one producer at the network. Well, fudge, said another CBS news staffer. You understand, these are people who are supposed to have extraordinary vocabularies, and that's all they can muster? Yikes. A third CBS staffer said they expected their department to be axed if the network is merged with CNN, and duplicative services are cut, as in standard for media mergers. Well, of course. It's cost-cutting. All corporations do this. Whenever you rah-rah over a merger, something that'll help your stock portfolio, you know there are job cuts coming right along. Won't take very long, and you know that they're going to try to whittle the cost of doing business down. That's a normal practice. But you're going to keep intact a large percentage of employees. You're not going to completely Elon Musk CNN, but you could. Paramount's victory would add not just CNN, but also Warner's prestigious HBO network to its portfolio, as well as for its hit shows, including Succession, Game of Thrones, and HBO is known for those award-winning documentaries as well. Well, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want to acquire something like that? HBO is a content machine, and as a streamer, it's enormous, immediately adding to the power of Paramount and Paramount Plus. Could you imagine the unity of those two organizations, unlike what Disney has slowly destroyed over there with Disney Minus and with Hulu? What a disaster that's been. Can you even continue to imagine what it could be in the future? No, because I don't see a lot of hopeful future for Disney Minus, Hulu, or ESPN. Paramount Skydance chief David Ellison will readily throw the First Amendment, CNN's reporters, and HBO's filmmakers under the bus if they stand in the way of expanding his corporate empire, fattening his pockets. Guys, you'll work somewhere to fatten your own pocket. And he doesn't seem to have a lot of political leanings. He just happened to show up at a State of the Union where a lot of people chose not to attend, including people who are supposed to be representing their constituency. There was a large percentage of folks on the left side of the equation who didn't intend something that their job actually requires them to do. Anyway, Seth Stern, chief of advocacy at the Freedom of the Press Foundation, was the one spilling this garbage. He says censorship is bad for business. Hang on a moment. Censorship's bad for business? You've been wanting nothing more than to censor the American public and opinions forever, even on, well, every platform. Getting now to the point where you're actually going to try to force identification on everybody at every level, from using their phone to using their computer to even subscribing to and using various services such as Twitch and Discord and everything else. You don't think that that's done for a chilling effect? Of course it is. You can't defend it with age verification because that's not what any of this data is being used for. It's being used for retaliatory strikes in the future, and you can't convince me or anyone else who's thoughtful and logical that that's wrong. Warner Brothers Discovery executives and shareholders should recognize that selling companies that depend on the First Amendment to a censorial White House puppet, this is such a lie, is not only morally wrong, but harmful to the bottom line. Where were all of these people, these great advocates for the First Amendment, when we were trying to tell the truth about what was happening during the global crisis? Nobody was allowed to speak freely during the pandemic for fear of getting their platforms pulled out from underneath them. The privilege to operate within this space is only granted by a limited section of the Communications Act. And at every turn, when you censor somebody, you're violating it. And I was surprised, for one, that this didn't come up in larger forms and under class action lawsuits when platforms were eliminating or demonetizing channels just because they didn't politically agree. And not only that, censorial White House of the time, or under the Biden administration, gutted every opportunity to have any kind of actual discourse using platforms such as Facebook and, at the time, Twitter, amongst other various video platforms, to censor any messages that were counter to their narrative. That's censorship, not what we're talking about here, which you have business competitors in the same industry that can still spill out the propaganda you want. Worry about the factor that you're losing to a more 50-50 margin in the theater of ideas. If your ideas suck, censoring the other people's ideas don't fix that. That's what the First Amendment's all about. Despite all the speculation you've read during this process, I'd suggest that you don't jump to conclusions about the future until we know more. That's smart. And secondly, let's not forget, our duty is to our audience. we're still near the start of what is already an incredibly newsy year at home and abroad, one that will culminate with the critical U.S. midterm elections and who knows what else. And with that, I leave this to you. What do you think? Do you think the Warner Brothers Discovery merger with Paramount will be completed in time to have an effect on any of those particular matters, especially when it comes to the U.S. election cycle? Do you think that it's possible that Warner Brothers Discovery, CNN, and all the other pieces involved there actually become better and stronger because there's a diversity of thought that has shown up? Do you think that this is a move forward to protect media as broadly as possible, including keeping Hollywood as part of something that pushes our culture forward, and that the messaging is driven by less censorship and narrative telling? Or do you think that this leads to a tug of war at a cultural level between two studios on the left and two studios on the right? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below, or any other thoughts you have about this particular merger, because this is the one I think we're going to have the broadest, biggest conversation on. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Probably not watching CNN still. Bye.